Hi everyone, so today we're going to work through your resilience toolkit. So the idea with this workshop is I'm going to give you specific skills to be able to help to boost your resilience. So to start off with, we want to really understand what is resilience. How I like to see it is your bounce back ability. So regardless of what life throws at you, that you'll be able to bounce back stronger than ever, rather than letting any setbacks or failures overcome the individual. And really, when we're looking at resilience, that when setbacks happen, that they really drain you and take all of your resources, so you're not able to bounce back. So the idea with the skills that we're going to be looking at in this workshop is to give you those skills to be able to help you to bounce back. So when we look at the psychological factors of resilience, there are a range of psychological factors that can actually help and have got research behind it to prove that they can help to boost and help to manage your resilience. So I'm going to go through a few of them. They're not the only ones, but firstly to look at optimism. So this is kind of seeing the glass half full kind of person. So being able to see that no matter if there's difficulties, that you're able to overcome them, that things are going to get better. Then emotional regulation, so being able to regulate your own emotions. That often when we are overcome with difficult situations, that our emotions will erupt. We may become angry, we may become upset. And when we feel those emotions, we're unable to regulate them. We haven't got the skills to be able to regulate our own emotions, which then lends us then to be overwhelmed, which then can necessarily, or that will then impact our own resilience. So by being able to regulate your own emotions. And then seeing failure as a helpful feedback rather than a setback. So when we have setbacks or failures, however you like to term them, that we can learn from them. Everything is a lesson. We can always be learning regardless of how far we think it sets us back. There's always something to learn from it. That's why I always like to think when people say that someone's relapsed or they failed, but really, wouldn't it be more helpful to think, okay, it was a lapse, but there's something that I've learned, because a relapse to me indicates that you've gone back to the beginning and you haven't learned. But being able to see failure as this task is something that kind of really help you to really overcome difficulties and gives you skills, gives you ideas about how to make sure that the same failure doesn't happen again. Then having a sense of autonomy. So feeling that you've got some control over your situation, over your life, and being in control of it and feeling that you are able to make those decisions or are able to kind of do things by yourself. Then that leads into being self-sufficient. So with that, what I mean is that you are able to problem solve, or you're able to regulate your own emotions, manage your own thoughts, just being able to survive by yourself. Not to say that you don't want other people around you, but you've got the skills that you're able to do it alone. Being able to set goals. So this is like thinking about SMART goals, so they're specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. But being able to set goals, to work towards them, whether it be big goals, small goals, whatever they are, just the ability to set goals and work towards them. Being able to think rationally. So this really goes in line with the emotional regulation, and we know from CBT that if we're thinking irrationally, it's going to impact our emotions. So if we're able to think rationally, that's going to give us a head start on how we're able to regulate and manage our own emotions. So being able to understand when our thoughts are negative, when our thoughts are becoming slightly irrational, and able to rationalise our own thoughts. Then having a good sense of self-esteem. So individuals with low self-esteem can really struggle to be resilient because we have all of those negative core beliefs or negative rules and assumptions, and feeling that you can't do it for whatever reason. And that really impacts on how we feel about ourselves and how we feel emotionally, how we feel that we're able to go into situations and be okay, rather than to continue to doubt ourselves, which will undoubtedly impact upon our confidence. Then adaptability. So regardless of what life throws at you, you are able to adapt, work through it, and get through it. Doesn't necessarily mean that you'll have to succeed, but that you can be able to adapt yourself, work your way around it, and be able to achieve the things you want to achieve. And then sociable. So you may think that this goes against the self-sufficiency and the autonomy, being able to engage with others, being able to share your problems. There's a saying that a problem shared is a problem halved. And it's not to say that you're going to go around telling everyone your problems, but just being able to be sociable, being able to interact with others and to see the benefits of social interaction rather than being really isolative. So they are just some factors about psychological resilience, but as I said, they are by no means the only ones. So what I'd like to do now is to give you an insight into the 3 C's of resilience. So this was by Schiraldi in 2017, and he came up with the idea that there's these 3 C's that will enable you to be resilient. So we have commitment, so believing what you do is important. So believing that what you're doing is going to make a difference, or it's going to be just important to you. Then control, so thinking that you have some control over the outcome of events. That doesn't mean complete control, but at least some control. And then my face looks like it's blocking the last one, but challenge. So viewing a potentially stressful event as a challenge instead of a threat. So it's missing out the most important word of threat. That sometimes when we are faced with something that's a difficulty, sometimes we can see it as a threat and it will lead us to avoid it, go back into the fight, flight or freeze response. But instead of just seeing it as kind of something that I can overcome, rather than something that's going to completely drain your energy, to take you away, and to not have a positive impact or positive outcome. So they're the 3 C's. So what I'm going to now do with you is work through the 3 C's and give you some skills about how you can build up those different areas for yourself. So to start off with, commitment. So believing what you do is important. So within this, I want to do an exercise which I like to call kind of what is your why. So really getting to the crux of why are you doing what you're doing, whether in life, in general, but what is it? So I want you to write down, you can think of this out loud if you want, but if you want to write it down, that's great. So I want to ... because ... You fill in the blanks. So it could be that I want to work out because I want to get in shape, for example. So write down your I want to because. And then what we're going to do is we're going to ask why 5 times. However, you are going to take the last part of your sentence and move it to the first part of the next why. So we've got the I want to work out because I want to get in shape. So why? So now it's I want to get in shape because I want to be able to play with my children. Okay. So now we've done one why. So fill in your why and take that first part, the last part to the first part. Now we're going to ask why again. So I want to play with my children because it's important to me to spend time with them. Okay. So now you fill in your why and why again. So I want to spend time with them because it's important for me to take time off of work. So you can see we're going along slightly teetering away. So again, answer for your why. And let me ask again, why? So I want to make sure I spend time off work because I can get burnt out. Okay, we're getting somewhere, we're getting deep. Okay. So answer your why. And the final why. I can get burnt out because I don't take time off work. Okay, so now we've got 5 whys. So we've gone from working out to get in shape to being burnt out at work. So as you can see with my example, that you could completely go off on a different tangent, or you may stay in a similar theme, and that's completely fine, whatever it is. So now you've got your last phrase. So now we want to think of a SMART goal. So I touched on SMART goals a few slides before, But a SMART goal is something that's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. So for that example, if we're thinking about that it's really important for them to spend time off work because they can get burnt out. So a SMART goal could be each week, 3 times a day in the evening, I will watch a movie, I will go for a walk, or I will cook dinner with my family, something like that. So I will go for a walk. So every week, and let's put a time limit on it. So every week for the next 3 months, I will go out for a walk 3 times a week with my family. So that is so clear. It's really specific. It's measurable because we can do that every week. And we know that's what we're measuring against. It's achievable because realistically, in this example, they may not be able to go out every day, but 3 times a week could be enough. And then again, it's realistic. So it's realistic to them. And it's achievable because they can go out for walks. Time bound. So we said the 3 months. So now we've got an end goal. And that's what we're thinking about with the commitment, is that you can set small goals or longer term goals. I quite like the idea of having your big overarching long-term goal, but having your small short-term goals, which are kind of steps, either on a ladder or up the stairs, to get you to where you want to be in the end. So that exercise, you can use it on anything that you really want to understand. Why am I doing this? What is behind this? Why am I so focused on this? And really understand your commitment. And by having that commitment, is really going to increase your resilience because you've got a focus and you know why you're doing that, because now you've done your what is your whys and you've got SMART goals to help you progress through that. So even if you have difficulties going on in other areas of your life, because you've got this commitment and you know exactly why you're doing it, it's going to help with your resilience. Okay. So now we move over into control. So when we are faced with a really difficult situation, it can be so easy to feel out of control. It can feel like the situation has got a hold over us. But really, we can regain some control. And by doing this, it's focusing on just what's in your control. Don't worry about the things that aren't in your control, because at the moment, they don't matter. And they're going to just make us feel more out of control, less resilient, and impact upon us. So just focusing solely on what is in your control. What can you do about something, and work on that. And even like when things seem really, really difficult, I promise you there will be some element that you can control, no matter how small it is. So anytime you feel out of control or you're faced with a difficult situation or a crisis, ask yourself, what can I control? How can I control it? What steps do I need to take? And do I need to set myself any tasks to gain control? So that could be thinking back to the SMART goals. So just those ideas are really going to help you. However, I hear you ask, what if you have no control? And it can feel like there's no control at times. And even though there can be some small elements that you can have control over, if you are really struggling with that concept, I suggest the idea of using mindfulness-based techniques. And this can be a really short meditation, it could be just a practice that you use. So if you kind of recognise what's going through your head, the thoughts that are going through your head, remember we spoke about the rationalising thoughts at the beginning. So think about what thoughts are going through your head. Really kind of what are these thoughts that are whirring around my head that are making me feel like I have not got control, nothing's going to go wrong. So recognise that thought. You don't want to attach yourself to it and then let yourself go, or let your thought go. And I know that sounds super simple, but it can feel really difficult, or it may sound really difficult, but it's doable. Once you kind of start to, and you can play around with it now, just recognising a thought that comes into my mind, recognising it, don't really attach onto it, and then breathe out, let it go. You can play around with it while I'm talking, see if any thoughts come into your head. And if you practice it in smaller situations, when there's other situations where you really feel you have no control, then you can use it. And I would like to say that even if you feel that you don't have control, as I said, there may be some small elements, but this can be a helpful practice if you just feel that you've got no control over your thoughts. But you have, because you've got this technique. So as I said, breathe in and breathe out, and just allowing those thoughts to really come into your mind and just to drift away. And it may be that you kind of use some visualization. So I really like to imagine kind of clouds or waves, kind of as my breath comes in and out, like the thoughts are kind of just floating away the waves or over the clouds. Some people like the idea of leaves on a stream. Whatever it is, just allowing that thought to just recognise it and then using your breath to blow it away. And just to say that it is completely normal that the thought that is bothering you will come back, because our thoughts just do that. We have so many, about 60,000 thoughts a day, some researchers said recently, but we don't really have much awareness of those many thoughts. However, the thoughts that are bothering us are likely to come back because we haven't really solved anything with it. But if we train our brain to recognise and let go, it's going to give us a lot more power. So that's control. Let's move on to the final C, challenge. So with this, there's really some structured ways of looking at this. So with this, we want to firstly accept that problems are inevitable. So we are going to have problems in life. One thing that's probably certain in life is there's going to be difficulties at times. So just accepting that. What can you do about it? They're inevitable. Understand your first impression. So when we're faced with a challenge, we're going to have an initial first impression, which is normally fueled with emotions, irrational thoughts, and that can really set the tone for how we then see the rest of the challenge. Then you want to really be able to distance yourself from the problem. So again, when we're faced with a difficulty, we throw ourselves in. We may even do this for other people's problems or difficulties, that we recognise other people are having problems and we want to throw ourselves in. We want to help them. But in doing that, we're whirring around the emotions, we're whirring around the thoughts, and we're not really thinking of any solutions, just kind of creating this whir. Then really learn to objectively evaluate the threats and consequences. So when we look at a challenge, really being like, okay, how is this going to matter in 5 years or even 5 months? Being able to really evaluate, okay, what is actually threatening about the situation? Is it my thoughts that are threatening? Is it the emotions I'm feeling that are making me feel like it's a threat? Or is it actually a threat? Try to ignore your reactions and focus on your improvement. So again, the idea of seeing the glass half full, thinking of failures as things that you can learn rather than a setback. So really focusing on those improvements. So I want to give you an example of how this can work in real life. So if you imagine that you are driving to work and it's on a route that you always take. But then this work time you get a flat tyre. So the first, as I said, is that acceptance that problems or challenges are inevitable. So you've got a flat tyre, kind of, so what? Then thinking about your first impression, that we are going to have all those thoughts of, oh, I'm going to be late, people are going to hate me, they're going to be waiting, they're going to judge me. But reframe that. All of those whir that is going around in your head is making you see this problem in a different way. Seeing it as a challenge, not seeing it as something that's going to create so much disrupt. Thinking, okay, I've just got a flat tyre. That's it. Looking at it just on the surface, you have a flat tyre. Yes, you may be late, but is that really the worst thing in the world? And thinking about it, just being aware of how you first react. It may be that, yes, you have got an important meeting, but what can you do about that if you've got a flat tyre? So thinking of it for what it is rather than what we make it to be. Then distancing ourselves from a problem. This can be done by saying things in third person, or kind of seeing yourself as just looking down. So Bill's got a flat tyre, he needs to pull to the side of the road and either put on a spare or call a towing company. Rather than being like, I'm going to be late, this is going to have massive problems, I'm going to get fired from work, then I'm going to become homeless. So thinking of all of those things. So again, you're just distancing yourself by just saying it in third person, like you're reading a story about yourself, rather than you being so tight in it that you can't see a way out. Then looking at thinking of things as the consequences. So really being quite understanding kind of what we are really kind of rationally looking at. So making a list of all the all the physical and all the mental, of all the significant negative consequences that it will have. And by doing this, it makes us think more rationally, because in our head we are going to make up a whole heap of negative consequences. But if we actually make a list of what will actually happen, so again, this can either be that you write it down or you just say it in your head. When you actually look at what the negative consequences are, they're not going to be as many as what you first think. So being rational, think about it objectively, thinking about what are the actual consequences. And then seeing it as an opportunity to learn a lesson, as something that isn't a complete setback, that's something that you can learn from. So reframing it as, I have a fat tyre, this will give me a chance to use my spare tyre. So you can see, by just having those different ways of looking at a challenge or a difficulty, it really can help you to become more resilient. And by being more resilient, we're going to be able to deal with other difficulties that are thrown in our face, because we've got all of these skills that help us manage. And it's great to really, all of these skills, practice them just on a regular basis. And then when a difficulty does arise, you're going to have a lot more kind of that skills to be able to draw upon. So I really hope you found that helpful. Thank you, and I will see you guys soon.